Okay, waiting for everyone to join. Okay. Good morning, Esther. How are you? Good to see you. Not sure how many people we're going to get on this call, but we'll just push ahead and hope for more another time. Okay, let's make a start. Hello, everyone, and we are going to ask a very important question, which is, why on earth did Yosef not contact his family, or at least his father, when he became viceroy in Egypt? Okay, he becomes the second in command. He becomes, has all the power of the known world. Why didn't he just write a letter and contact Yaakov and say, I'm alive and well, living in Egypt? And if you want to sharpen the question, why is he causing so much pain and anguish to his father when we think about the fact that Shimon is taken prisoner in order that they will come back with Binyamin? It seems to be very cruel and calculated from Yosef, and on face value seems almost to be that he's trying to take revenge on his brothers and also on his father. So the main commentator that talks about this is the Ramban, and he, in the 13th century, wrote a very long piece, which we're going to look at. Based on that piece of the Ramban, we have two modern commentators today, Rabbi Yoel Ben Nun, who was my Rosh Yeshiva back when I was 18, studying in Yeshiva Kibbutz Adati, and Rabbi Yaakov Meidan, who critiques Rabbi Yoel Ben Nun. There's a bit of a back and forth between them, which we'll see. But first, I want to jump into the Ramban, because the Ramban wants to understand this fundamental question, which is, how can you behave like this? It seems to be very cold and isn't showing any love, support of his father. So let's jump in. So in source number 1, it says, and Yosef remembered the dreams. Says the Ramban here begins by quoting Rashi, and he says, concerning them, and now knew that they had been fulfilled, for they had bowed down to him. This is the language of Rashi. So Ramban quotes Rashi. Rashi is saying the fact that 10 brothers have bowed down to Yosef when going to buy grain is a clear indicator of the dreams coming true, that the brothers are bowing down to Yosef. And who am I to argue with Rashi? But the Ramban, Nachmanides, says, in my opinion, the matter is the reverse. Hafuch. It's completely opposite. Because remember, what were the dreams that Yosef had? Was 11 sheaves of wheat bowing down to Yosef's sheaf. This is only 10. So not even the first dream has come about. And the second dream was 11 stars, the sun and the moon. So Yaakov is not here. So I have no Yaakov and no Binyamin. There's no fulfillment of either of the dreams. So he says, in my opinion, in that second paragraph there, in my opinion, the matter is the reverse. Scripture states that when Yosef saw his brothers bowing down to him, he remembered all the dreams which he had dreamt concerning them. And he knew that in this instance, not one of the dreams had been fulfilled. He knew that it was inherent in their interpretation that according to the first dream, at first all of his brothers would bow down to him, as it says, and behold, we were binding sheaves. For we refers to not 10 of the brothers, but all 11. And in the second time, in accordance with the second dream, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars would bow down to him. So the Ramban continues and says, now since he did not see Benjamin with them, or Binyamin, he conceived of the strategy of devising a charge against them. So they would also bring his brother Binyamin to him in order to first fulfill the first dream. It is for this reason alone that he did not wish to tell them at that time, Ani Yosef Achicha, I am Joseph your brother, and to say, hasten and go up to my father and send wagons, as he did to them the second time. For in that case, his father would undoubtedly have come at once. It was only after fulfillment of the first dream that he told them, Ani Yosef Achicha, I am Joseph your brother, in order to fulfill the second dream. So the Ramban is explaining to us the reason for, on the surface of it being cold and calculated, or maybe even revenge, is none of that. It's purely so that the dreams can come to fruition. And the Ramban goes further and says in paragraph 4, were it not for this consideration, Yosef would have indeed been regarded as having committed a great sin. How so? By bringing anguish to his father, leaving him for many days in the position of being bereft, and now mourning for Shimon as well as for him. And even if it was his intention to cause his brothers minor anguish, how did he not have compassion for his elderly father? But he assigned each to its proper time in order to fulfill the dreams, knowing that they would truly be fulfilled. So the Ramban here is telling us the only reason that Yosef could do this to Yaakov was because he was so preoccupied with the dream fulfillment. And it's okay that he wanted to maybe put his brothers through the ringer, but the mistreatment of his father causing him the anguish to him to not only continue to believe that he was dead, but also that Shimon was now, unable to return. This would create tremendous tsar, pain, and anguish to Yaakov. And the only reason we can justify that is not that Yosef is cruel, but that Yosef is determined to fulfill the dreams. Continuing with the Ramban, in the 5th paragraph there, it says, also the second matter, which he effected against them in connection with the Geviah, the goblet, is not to be interpreted as if his intention was to cause them pain, but rather because he suspected that they might hate Binyamin as a result of their jealousy of him on account of his father's love for him, just as they were jealous of Yosef. Perhaps Binyamin had sensed that they had harmed Yosef, thus causing a quarrel and hatred to erupt between him and his brothers. Therefore, Yosef did not wish Binyamin to travel with them until he had tested their love for him, lest they harm him. So what's going on here? The Ramban wants to develop this further, which is, we need to know, have the brothers fundamentally changed or not? And what's going on here? That we need to know not just that Yosef is obsessed with dream fulfillment, that he wants the manifestation of his brothers bowing down to him. No. Says the Ramban here, there's a second important consideration here, which is, have the brothers changed their behavior, or are they still the same brothers who sold him or allowed him to be sold all those years ago? And the way to define that is to see, are they still taking or treating the sons of Rachel, so in this case Binyamin, are they still jealous of the sons of Rachel? Or have they moved on? Are they able to see that there is a difference, that they can now protect and look after the well-being of Binyamin as much as they would their well-being of themselves? And the only way to do that, says the Ramban, is through this subterfuge, by accusing them of spies, by holding Shimon prisoner, by saying, I'll only give you grain if Binyamin comes. Because then, through giving the Geviah, by putting the goblets in Binyamin's pack, we would see, would the brothers turn on Binyamin? Would the brothers risk their lives for him or not? And as we all know, Baruch Hashem, thank God, in next week's Parashat Vayigash, it is true that Yehuda has changed fundamentally. He goes from Mabetza, what possible benefit do we have by killing Yosef? Let's sell him instead, to be willing to put his own life on the line, to switch his life for Binyamin's. Let Binyamin go back to his father, and I will be your slave. This is the teshuvah moment for Yehuda, where Yehuda can be in exactly the same situation as he was when it came to selling Yosef or allowing Yosef to be sold. And this time, when he could have just allowed Binyamin to be taken prisoner, rightfully, he said, his life is more important than mine. His role, his relationship with my father is more significant, and so therefore I must make myself a slave to this viceroy rather than my brother. And so therefore this is the only way to do it. Now if you look over at the top of side 2 there, on that top paragraph, Ramban continues, it is to this matter that our rabbis in Bereshit Rabbah, the Midrash, referred when they said, Rabbi Chia, the son of Rabbi Abba, said, when you read the entire plea which Yehuda made in the presence of his brothers, until you reach the verse, then Yosef could not hold himself back. He could not refrain himself. This was in it an attempt to win the sympathy of Yosef, the sympathy of his brothers, and the sympathy of Binyamin. Yosef's sympathy, see how he's ready to give up his life for Rachel's children. The Midrash is saying the same as Ramban. Ramban is not just plucking this out of thin air. He based his words on the Midrash, that everything Yosef is doing, it's not merely dream fulfillment. He wants to know, have the brothers learned from what they did all those years ago? Similarly, I say that all these acts of Yosef are accounted for by his wisdom in the interpretation of the dreams. Otherwise, we should wonder. After Yosef stayed in Egypt for many years and became chief and overseer in the house of a great lord in Egypt, how is it possible they did not even send a single letter to his father to inform him of his whereabouts and comfort him? As Egypt, and this is this important point here, it's only a 6-day journey from Hebron. And even if you were to say it was a year's journey, out of respect to his father, he should have notified him, in which case, even if the ransom of his person would be ever so costly, he would have redeemed him. Says the Ramban, this wasn't a 40-year, we always think that there must have been very far to get from Egypt to the land of Israel. If you know where you're going, it's only a 6-day journey. It was very easy for Yosef, not even when he was viceroy, when he was ruling Potiphar's home, to send a letter to his father. So why was he so cruel? Why didn't he write to him? Because of this, because of the need of the fulfillment. As it says here in the final paragraph of the Ramban, It was because Yosef saw that the bowing down of his brothers, as well as his father and all his family, could not possibly be accomplished in their homeland. And he was hoping that it would be effected in Egypt when he saw his great success there. This was all the more so after he heard Pharaoh's dream, from which it became clear to him that all of them were destined to come there and all his dreams would be fulfilled. Now, here's where I struggle with the Ramban, because the Ramban seems to be putting on to us that the dream fulfillment was more important than trying to see if the brothers had changed. For me, the more compelling answer is that position in Bereshit Rabbah, where what is he trying to do? He's trying to see, have the brothers changed? Will they mistreat another son of Rachel or not? Will they be willing to put their lives on the line and save the son of Rachel over their own lives? To me, that's the most compelling argument for all of this. But the Ramban begins and ends with this answer that Yosef is obsessed with dream fulfillment. So I just want to state there, for me, there are two answers. Number one, dream fulfillment. And number two, will they be willing to risk their lives to save Binyamin? It's a test. But if you had to ask me which is the Ramban's primary answer, it is the dream fulfillment is the primary answer. But for me, I prefer the answer of the Midrash, where it's all about, will the brothers put their lives on the line for Binyamin? Now, I'm going to present to you now is two contemporary rabbis, Rav Yoel ben Nun. Now, Rav Yoel ben Nun was my Rosh Yeshiva back when I was 18, studying at a Bnei Akiva yeshiva called Yeshivat Kibbutz Hadati. And to me, this was a small yeshiva in the middle of nowhere. And many of the rabbis teaching there, many of the students who went there, were only Dovrei Ivrit, were only Hebrew speakers. And I had no idea who the Rosh Yeshiva was this great scholar of Tanakh. He didn't teach us very often. And when he did, I didn't really understand, because at least in my first year in Israel, my Hebrew was not very good enough to listen to a shiur. It was actually after leaving the yeshiva that I came across many of his writings translated, and then I studied them in their original, that I found out what a genius Rav Yoel ben Nun is today. And I've had many conversations with him since. But it's interesting that sometimes you can be in a scenario where you don't realize in whose presence you're in and what type of learning possibilities you could have. But you know what? That's one of the classics, that youth is wasted on the young. But thankfully, it wasn't something that I missed, because I'm able to learn from his writings and able to communicate with him. Now, Rav Yoel ben Nun brings this Ramban, and he has a different answer. Okay? And I've paraphrased it just because Rav Yoel ben Nun's piece is a very, very long essay, so I've written it in my own words as follows. And he says there in source number 2, the usual solution advanced by the Ramban, that Yosef was trying to fulfill the dreams, is completely rejected by Rav ben Nun, chiefly because it doesn't address, in his opinion, the moral question. How could Yosef have left his father in torment only to bring his dreams to fruition? So he says, I will give you a different answer. So he says, our entire outlook on this story changes, however, if we accept the fact that Yosef did not know that his brothers had fooled his father with the coat, the blood, and the lie that Yosef had been devoured by wild animals. Such thoughts never occurred to him. Hence it was Yosef who spent 13 years of slavery in Egypt and the following years of greatness, wondering, where is my father? Why has no one come to look for me? All the factors are now reversed. When seen from Yosef's point of view, Egypt is, after all, close to Canaan, and Yaakov was a rich, important, and influential man with international familial and political connections. The Midianites or Ishmaelites who brought Yosef to Egypt were distant cousins. Was it possible that no one from that caravan could be located in all those years? We know that Yaakov does not search for his son, as he thinks Yosef is dead. But Yosef has no way of knowing this. And going further, Rav Yoel ben Nun says, who sent Yosef to check on his brothers? It was Yaakov. It's possible, says Rav Yoel ben Nun, that this was an entire family plot to rid themselves of Yosef. So Yosef says, not why am I not contacting my family? My family's not contacting me. My family doesn't care. They're not looking after me. They're not wondering where I am or how I'm doing. And so therefore, for Rav Yoel ben Nun, the answer is straightforward. Not what am I doing, but clearly no one cares about me, and that's why I'm out. I'm out. No one wants it. No one cares about me. I'm out. And so therefore, that's why he's not contacting. And it softens the whole position of the moral question of why Yosef did not write home. He didn't write home because he assumed no one's looking for him. No one cares about him. Now, Rav Yaakov Meidan, another wonderful Torah scholar who has wonderful comments. Again, if you ever go to the VBM, the virtual Bet Midrash of Har Etzion, you can see there many articles translated from the original Hebrew of Rav Meidan, Rav Yoel ben Nun, and many other great rabbis who have spent many years putting up their shiurim, and they're all available there, and many of them are translated into English. And they're essays, like you have to spend a long time just reading through all of them. But Rabbi Yaakov Meidan, there's a major flaw, basically, in Rav Yoel ben Nun's position, which is Yosef knew just how much his father loved him. He knew he was the favorite son. He knew he had the Ketonet Pasim. He knew he was the firstborn of Rachel. It's impossible, says Rav Meidan, for us to imagine that that's what's going through Yosef's mind, because he knew how much his father loved him. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not possible for him to think that his father was in on everything else, that his father was the one who encouraged him to go to find his brothers because because the brothers wanted to get rid of him. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And he says here, it also remains unclear why Yosef, surprised that his father did not seek him out, came to harbor the kind of suspicions attributed to him by Rav ben Nun. How could he be certain that his father knew of the sale, but refrained from searching for him? Why did it not occur to him that his father regarded him as dead? To this day, a person who disappears without a trace is presumed dead. Why should we assume that Yosef did not believe that the brothers were lying to his father? It was precisely because the brothers did not habitually report their actions to their father that Yosef found it necessary to tell the father all their misdeeds. That's the whole point. His father, Yaakov, did not know what the brothers were doing. So Rav Meidan here is saying, Rav ben Nun, it's a nice theory, but it doesn't fit the facts. It doesn't fit what we already know about Yosef and his relationship with his father. So Rav Meidan in source 4 suggests his own solution based on the writings of the Abravanel or the Abarbanel. And he writes, even after Yosef tested his brothers by accusing them of spying, he was still not certain whether they loved Binyamin or whether they still hated Rachel's children. So he focused on Binyamin to see whether they would try to save him. So what does Rav Meidan say? That it's not about fulfilling the dreams. It's exactly what I said before. The main reason why Yosef is doing what he's doing, the reason why he's not telling his father, the reason why he must mistreat the brothers is so that he can define in the only way possible, by putting Binyamin's life in danger, would they be willing to trade their lives for his? And then Rav Ben Nun has the final word, and he says, although Rav Meidan's arguments are very compelling, he still says he likes his answer. And like most rabbis, it's very hard for us to say that we're right or we're wrong. So just to summarize what's going on here, the Ramban asked the obvious question: why on earth did Yosef, in the 13 years, again, there were times when he was in jail, but the time when he was in Potiphar's house, or the few years where he's the viceroy, why not send a letter to his father? And the Ramban brings two answers. Number one, he's obsessed with the fulfillment of the dreams. And number two, from the Midrash, that he wants to see whether the brothers still have ill will towards the children of Rachel. And so he conspires this whole situation to do that. However, the Ramban still says the main reason is dream fulfillment. Rav Yoel Ben Nun suggests a completely different answer. The reason why Yosef did not write back is because he was convinced that since Yaakov was not searching for him, it must be because Yaakov doesn't want him back, that Yaakov was in on the same deal. Rav Meidan says that makes absolutely no sense, because Yosef is his favorite. He gets the Ketonet Pasim. He's loved unconditionally. So it cannot be that. And Rav Meidan says the real reason is that reason number two, brought by the Midrash, brought by the Baranel, that it's all about establishing what will the brothers do when it's Binyamin is going to be made a slave. Will they risk everything to save him or not? And that has to be the fundamental answer, because it's untenable for us to say that Yosef is cruel, that Yosef is seeking revenge. Rather, this is the only way to establish whether the brothers have learned their lesson and have changed their position. Let us hope that none of us need such difficult tests in order to prove our loyalty, and that we can all have wonderful homes and wonderful families where we can show our love unconditionally and support one another. And in Yitzhak Hashem, with God's help, we can all have the blessings of the Avot on all of us, and we can have beautiful families going Mechael Echael. Have a wonderful week.